Okay, hi everybody, it's Sarah from SUPjunkie here, and I'm joined today by Ali Findlay from Glasgow Paddleboarders. Welcome. Good morning, Ali.
Morning. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about, which is all related around Scotland specifically. So it's a first for me, and hopefully it's a first for you as well, or first of many. Let's put it that way. Before we start, Ali, can I just let you explain who you are, where you live, what you do, how long you've been involved in paddleboarding, because I know it's quite a long time. So if you can give us a brief idea of you as a person, you know what your SUP history is, that would be great.
Yeah, so I live in a town called Kirkintilloch, just about 10 miles north of Glasgow. And I have three lovely children and a wonderful wife who support me in all the time that I spend away. But basically, I run Glasgow Paddleboarders Company, which started in 2018. And we started by doing like just beginners lessons, and that progressed into more adventurous stuff. And then that was all initially done through Water Skills Academy. And that was brilliant, and became a trainer with them. So then I trained instructors in Scotland as well through the WSA pathway. And then fairly recently switched to work with the Scottish Surfing Federation to affiliate with the International Surfing Association. And that was kind of largely driven by the race scene, which is kind of a part of what we do as well. It's not the main part of what we do, but it's the main part of my role with Scottish Surfing at the minute, is to support the race setup in Scotland and to get the Scottish Surfing Federation series running as a kind of future event that we'll do together. So yeah, lots going on. Was in the river last night until 10 o'clock at night doing a little trip. So yeah, always busy, always doing things. So yeah, I've been paddling for 10 years. Started paddling after I finished playing rugby. So yeah, that's kind of us. It's the busy life. Yeah.
Sounds great. Busy life with that work home balance, especially with three little children. I know you're a brilliant dad, and you're daddy daycare at the moment, so well done for that. We actually probably met through the WSA, didn't we? And we always love to give them a shout out because they were brilliant. We love them. We're part of their family. And Scottish Surfing Federation, I gather from you, have been really very supportive in transitioning for you, your sort
Yeah.
of qualifications.
Yeah, so they asked me to become the SUP lead for Scotland through the federation, and that probably goes back to a conversation I had with the president about 3 years ago, and just looking at how we can involve SUP within the Surfing Federation world up here, and then I suppose when WSA finished, it was a really easy transition. The guys were super supportive around getting somebody that had, I suppose, SUP knowledge in Scotland, and it seemed like an easy fit, and it seemed like the right time for me as well to jump into that role. There's loads of guys that like in Paddle Scotland that have been super supportive of this as well, and yeah, it's just good to have the surfing scene kind of recognised in the SUP world as well. So for me, that's really exciting. And I had a big chat with the CEO. There's a brand new CEO with Scottish Surf that's just started in the past month, and we were chatting lots about development of the sport in Scotland, and it's a really exciting time for paddleboarding as a surf discipline in Scotland. So yeah, super exciting times, and just I worked really closely with I have to say Andy Joyce. He's down on the south coast. Surf steps. Worked closely with him, and he trained me as an ISA presenter. So now I'm the first Scottish International Surfing Association presenter specifically for paddleboarding, for flat water, open water, and we're in the process of working towards doing the SUP surf as well. So yeah, like just an exciting time to kind of be involved in it, really, to be honest.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's great that you've stepped up to that, and that they know you and they know your qualities and whatever. Andy Joyce was actually racing on Saturday down at Base Up. Blast from the past there. It was really nice to see him on the board. I think it was really in memory of Mark Slater Slasher. I think all the OGs came out. It's really lovely to see him back on the board and racing. He's a very, very good guy. Very good guy. So let's talk championships. So you obviously, as the SUP lead and getting into racing, was it your suggestion that you bring up, you bring us championships to Scotland or run it for them, or was it theirs or joint decision? How did that happen, Ali?
Well, the race scene in Scotland's probably been, there was stuff that went on before and then it stopped. And that was run over on the East Coast by a couple of guys on the East Coast. There was bits and pieces, but I don't think it ever really took off. And then when working with WSA, Scott Warren came up to Glasgow, must be 2 or 3 years ago now, and he did a race directorship course with a few of us up here because we were really keen to have a Scottish race scene. There's other guys that were running stuff even before I got involved. So, Angela and Martin Kerr, they run a little business called SUP in Lochwinnoch, just southeast of Glasgow, and they were influential in getting the race scene going. Even at an early stage, because they started running what's called the Lochwinnoch Loop, which is a 5 and 10K race that they run. They did, I think, originally run it 2 or 3 times a year, but they're just running it once this year to try and make it part of a bigger sort of series of events that happen in Scotland. So that was ongoing. Then Scott came up and ran the race director course so that we could understand the safety implications, the legal implications, how to run races, what that looked like, just a bit of training around how to do it well. And that was a fantastic course that we did. And then kind of from that, obviously Aquapaddle's been set up, which is not done as a race setup, but it's done as a way of getting a 5K time. So there's Aquapaddle happening in Scotland through some of the Paddle Scotland schools, which is great to see, people going out, and although it's not race, it's, timed 5K. So that's on. But with Scott, we wanted to have a GB SUP series in Scotland, and Scott and Adrian were both running that setup last year. They always had this vision of having an English series, a Welsh series, and a Scottish series. So last year we dabbled with it and we ran under the GB SUP rules and we did their stuff. And this year, sadly, the first event that we were supposed to do was cancelled. So the first one now is going to be in Loch Lomond. We run the Loch Lomond race, and it's fantastic. It's the second of 3 races, but it's the second one, so it's really the first one. So it will run on the 20th of July, and then we'll have another GB SUP race over in Edinburgh side. That will happen in the first weekend of September. So at the minute, that is the kind of format of the series amongst other people, just doing bits and pieces. There's other Paddle Scotland races that happen that aren't part of the kind of race series for Scotland. But looking forwards, next year, we'll hopefully have a Scottish surf race series. And this slow kind of process of building, I suppose, came to a head when SSF were saying, right, well, what are we doing here? What's the aim of this? What's the goal of this? And the aim is to push racing within the Scottish Surf Federation. So I think the obvious progression for this is to have a Scottish surfing race series that is its own entity. And then we work with GB SUP, to run a little kind of GB SUP thing as well. So it was pushed probably by the race scene wanting something to happen, and also the racers that were in the Scottish racing wanting to actually have the opportunity to race for Scotland. So probably what's happened really is that they have pushed for something, and I've just been the guy that's contacted SSF and made it happen at the minute. So that's where we're at as a federation and what's kind of going on just now.
Brilliant. Well, we do, I said it earlier, we do need people like you, Ali, who will step up, and it's not an easy task. We know that. I've never been a race director or been involved in that side of it, but I do know many people who have obviously been involved, with GB SUP for many, many years, and I just know what jolly hard work it is. And obviously you need to gather your volunteers, your helpers, whatever. So it's a really tough thing. And obviously with this, the SUP and Paddleboard Scottish Championships, that level is raised a little bit, isn't it? Because the pressure is on absolutely to get it right and to get those people qualified for the ISA World. So can you talk to me about, well, do we just want to dive straight into the day and the race and how it went, the setup? I'm sure you'd like to thank a lot of people as well, because we do need those volunteers and those helpers. So maybe talk about the actual day of the race.
Yeah, so the race planning sort of started, I suppose it was January, because it was, there was a big meeting with, I think it was at the AGM with SSF, and they wanted dates in the diary for getting things going. And we knew that the championships in Denmark was in September. So we had a little look at when England were doing things, Wales were doing things, sort of try to find a free weekend, you know, in amongst a busy schedule to, you know, volunteer basically to run this stuff. There's a club there's a membership through Glasgow Paddleboards, and the guys in that are brilliant at coming and supporting for all these events that we run. I mentioned them earlier, like Martin and Angela Kerritlocks up there, fantastic at coming and supporting these things. On the morning of the race, there was racers just kind of milling around, nervously waiting to do things, and they were coming over and helping set up. So the community aspect of racing is really, really fun, and because it's quite small, it's tight knit as well. People are, you know, people are friends, you know, so it's nice to have that support. But I was really keen that for the first championship for Scotland, that it was run on the sea. Obviously, there's millions of water everywhere in Scotland. There's a multitude of places where you know you could run things and have it on, you know, flat, pristine, calm water. But I think for being a championships that's going to send people to the world, they need to be like racing in conditions that are tougher.
Emulate. Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, the weather in Copenhagen could be, you know, 25 degrees in flat calm, but you just don't know what's happening the day of the race, do you? So we ran it in Portobello Promenade, which is just a kind of beach area just out. It's part of Edinburgh City. It looks up across to Fife and looks right out to East Lothian. It's a beautiful location. The promenade has got shops and cafes all along it. It's always full of spectators and people that are walking past on their day. So it's a good place to draw people in and help the public see what's going on. And then in the morning, we rocked up with the van, got some boys out into the bay, and we created a W-shaped loop. So there was 3 boys far at the back and 2 closer to shore. And then what we wanted to create for the technical race was to have left and right-hand turns. We had 16 entries for the tech. And what we did this year, because it's the first one, and it's probably controversial, but we just did a tech race only, and we qualified through the tech. We qualified for the distance race through the tech race just because it was the first one. We wanted to get it up and running, run a race, see who entered, run it, and then what happened was the top 2 finishers basically qualified for tech and distance. They're obviously quite different disciplines, but it was the first one, and we just wanted to do that. So yeah, fantastic help setting up, putting boys out in the bay. We had the Musselburgh Sea Cadets came, and they took a little dinghy on the water basically and had a boat ready for us. Scottish Surfing Federation got big flags for the beach start. We had little Scotland flags up on the lamppost. Like there was a little bit of a scene created on the beach. It was nice. And then
Good.
when all the boards light up, you know, the fancy race boards that you see that everyone brings, it looks great when you have it there on the bay. So yeah, it was a brilliant morning. It was a good kind of atmosphere. People were buzzing, you know, but it was interesting because I read a little post that one of the guys that qualified for Scotland wrote, and he said he was really nervous. You know, like you get nervous before you do a race, but you know, when it's to qualify for the champs, it's like more nerve-wracking than ever because there's a big prize at the end of it.
Yeah, level up.
I really kind of, you don't think about that sometimes when you're running a race because you're so busy running around trying to make sure that everything's organized. So no, yeah, it was fantastic. And we had good weather, light offshore winds. It wasn't, well, kind of cross shore. It wasn't too bad actually. And then, you know, the race is done before you know it. But we split it up. So we had the men and women racing together at the same time with 2 prone paddlers as well. And basically off they went with a beach start. They made it a little bit wider at the start so that everyone could get out. And they just took off, you know. It was 2 laps of the race. We had 1 junior this year, which was fantastic.
Brilliant.
Need to really build on the junior scene. That's the big push is going to be getting more juniors into the sport. But she became Scottish champion on her own, you know. So good play for her. So yeah, it was a good start to the tech race. It was bumpy in the bay, and I think people found the boy turns a lot harder than maybe they expected. but that's because a lot of the racing that goes on already in Scotland is not done in the sea. And a lot of that, the reasoning for that is probably because it's just easier to organise stuff when it's in flat water and it's not going to be bumpy and blowing offshore winds and we're all going to get blown away. So it's definitely something that people will upskill at, is these buoy turns, you know, and just getting better. Trying to do that on a narrow board is hard at the best of times without the bumps. So yeah, but the tech race was good, and I think it was a really good challenge. And for the first one, it also, there'll probably be people that are disappointed with how they performed in the race on the day. I think that's normal in a race. But it gave them a real insight to what it can be like, you know, and what it should be like within the race world. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how the whole thing went for the tech race. You know, great. And then we had a break for a while, went and got lunch, and then in the afternoon we did sprints. I entered the sprints and we ran.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Ali. How was your race day?
Well, so we did it. And so for the men, we did 2 heats. The women just did 1 final. There's no sprint racing for prone. So the women did their straight heat, off they went and came out, and it was fantastic. Jen Armstrong qualified for that, and she missed out on qualification in the morning for the tech and the distance because Alison Rennie and Angela Kerr qualified for that. So she was delighted to be able to qualify for that. It was great to have her. And then we ran the men in 2 heats, and what we did was we took the times from the tech race and we basically went 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, so that it wasn't fast. All the fast guys won. We split the heats up. So heat 1 went off, and it came. We took the top 2 from that to go into the final. Heat 2 went off. I was in that. Happy days. Won my heat. Got back. But like in the process of organising, I kicked something and I broke my toe. So you know, I went into that. Wasn't ideal. And then you know, running down. There's a full video of it. I'll send you a link so you can share it out. Threw my board in. Great start. Jumped on my board, fell in the water, and then off Jonathan goes. And you can't. You know, it's like Usain Bolt tripping over his laces at the start of a race. You just can't do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it happens.
Yeah,
it happens to the best of everybody.
I must say, there's another guy that was on the race, a guy, Cameron, Choppy SUP, his Instagram. You should follow him. He does a lot of whitewater stuff.
Specialist.
Yeah, so he came. I actually gave him a shot of my Atlantis race board, which is probably the board realistically that I would have used. But I used my Bullet, and the Atlantis is more of a race board. It's definitely faster and it's got more handles on it. But after falling in, I managed to get back on, and I got back into second because on the buoy turn I cut Cameron off. And then I spun round, but Jonathan was away at that point, so there was no catching him. But I thought, well, that's fine, I'll get second, I'll take that. But I was so knackered from gunning out at the start, and I didn't leave anything in the tank really to get back in. So that in the video, you'll see it. The second, third, and fourth place are neck and neck going in at the end. And then as we're getting off the beach, you know when your board sticks to the water and you can't lift it out?
Yeah.
So I couldn't get my board up, and because I'm used to the Atlantis having the side handles, you just grab the side handle, lift it, and run. But I couldn't get the board, so that stuck. And then right at the end, Cameron just pipped me at the end.
Oh, damn. No, that's a really good point. I mean, these are all things that if you've never raced in these situations, you may not know these little top tips. But if you're trying to lift it from the center handle from the water, it just sticks like glue. And that's why you've got these, you know, some people wonder why there is a front handle on the, you know, on the side. And this is exactly what it's for. And for your beach starts and everything. So it's really good points, really good points. And I read the piece that you were talking about. I think it was by Jonathan Sherwin, who we've nicknamed Jonathan McSherwin. We gave him a big shout out at the GB SUP live feed. And he wrote a really interesting little piece. I'm hoping he's going to do a blog for us actually about those nerves and being more nervous because there's more to play for. So yeah, interesting point.
That's great. I mean, this is why I run the Scottish Champs, because it pulls people from all places. Because you know, Jonathan rocked up to the racing like, who's this guy? You know, because he lives down in Bath, and you know, Jonathan qualifies for Scotland. He grew up in Helensburgh, went to Helensburgh primary school, and then his dad was in the Navy, so then he went, you know, moved down south. But you know, in the SSF, the rules are pretty strict around qualification and what we want, because we want to protect Scottish athletes and make sure that we send Scottish athletes that race in Scotland to these events, because you know, in the big surfing federation, we have to protect the people that should be going, because it's, you know, in football and rugby, you know, if you live in a country for 3 years and uh, you know, play in a team in Scotland, you know, after 3 years you qualify as Scottish, but you know, you're no more Scottish than flying aerially. I mean, you know, it makes me laugh because Duan van der Merwe is an amazing Scottish rugby player, but he's got the thickest Afrikaans South African accent going, you know. So it's like, it's just interesting the way that sport qualifies nationality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so yeah,
equally, I don't know what, sorry to interrupt, I don't know what it's like with the Scottish Federation, because in Wales and England, if you've got heritage, you know, if you've got parents or grandparents, I think it is, you can paddle for that country. I guess it must be the same for
yeah. So with Scotland,
Scotland.
it's parents only, not grandparents. So you have to have a Scottish parent, and you have to
Okay.
have lived at least 5 years, which is different to England and Wales. And it's
Yeah, absolutely.
been an
Yeah, you're
interesting
tough in Scotland, you guys. You're tough.
it's been tough because there's people that, had they lived in England or Wales, would have qualified potentially. So that's been a tough thing, but it's just the way that we do it because we want to protect the Scottish athletes, you know, and that's
Yeah.
just how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, actually. You know, it's because ultimately you could just swap and change a bit, couldn't you? You can't do that too much, but there is that availability to do that. So I think it's admirable what you know, how you're running in Scotland. So let's just give a shout out to those paddlers. Jonathan Sherwin. Oh God, I'm going to call him Jonathan McSherwin. He's qualified for tech distance and sprints. Glenn Sloss has qualified for tech and distance. Jennifer Armstrong, who you mentioned earlier, qualified for sprints. Angela Kerr, tech and distance, and Alison Renee, tech and distance. So some good names there. Names, obviously, some of them I know. I mean, Alison, you know, she's all over endurance, you know, all the time. So this is going to be a completely different. I know she does race a lot in Scotland.
Yeah, she was another one actually talking about just nerves on the day, you know. Like, I mean, Alison's a fast paddler, you know. But she was saying, oh man, I was just so nervous at the start, you know. But you just want, people just want to have a good race, don't they? And it's a good thing that you're nervous because it shows you care. That's what I always think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as we said earlier, those little accidents can happen. You can, you know, I don't know if you watched any live feed from the racing on Saturday, but there were a few, you know, trips and falls, and if you trip on the last minute or trip coming off your board, you can lose a place or two. You know, you can face plant. No one did that, thank goodness, but it does happen, and you know, it's great when you finish exactly where you want to, first, second, third, or whatever, and you're not disappointed. You know everything's gone to plan, but it's racing, isn't it? It's SUP racing. Things can happen, like broken toes and stuff.
Mm. I know. Well, in the prone race, actually, we didn't have any real. There's no injuries at all. But one of the guys actually that was hoping to qualify for Scotland's the guy James Fletcher. He's a prone paddler, and he did the first lap and actually had some kind of heart issue, and his heart was fluttering at a rate of knots. He gets it occasionally. He's waiting for a thing, so he had to actually come off the water. So he was pretty gutted because he'd come to qualify hopefully, and actually Dean Dunbar qualified as well for the prone, but Dean is registered blind.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of an ongoing issue at the minute trying to identify whether he will be allowed to race in Denmark, because the rules stipulate that from ISA competition that you're not allowed to use electronic or mechanical devices to help or an athlete to race. Now, Dean uses a walkie-talkie on his shoulder that he communicates with his wife, and she basically helps him to see the course and tells him where to go. And that's how he's
Okay.
always raced. He's
Yeah.
done that for years. But I think on the international level, there's never been anyone that that's happened with, and we're just waiting now for answers to see whether that's a goer for Dean. So
Possibility.
shout out to him,
Wow.
shout out to James as well for the pro, but he just wasn't well on the day to finish the race, which is a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw. I think I said to you, I saw that he'd been, you know, didn't finish, and that is, you know, I've never heard that from James. He's a brilliant, brilliant pro paddler, as is Dean. Actually, been following both of them for years. So yeah, great shame. Well, keep us posted about Dean, because that would be fascinating, wouldn't it? That would be really cool
Yeah,
if
but
he could.
it's an ongoing process. We're waiting for answers, but we'll get there in there. Yeah, just need
Yeah,
to wait.
absolutely. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I was going to talk about what happens next in protocol, but let's talk about, first of all, so that we can get it in, how we can help these athletes to achieve their dream of going to the ISA World Championships in Denmark.
Yeah,
How
so
can we do that?
it's not cheap doing any of these events, and obviously the guys are desperate to go. They want to go and represent Scotland. They want to represent their country. Even the hype just now in the Euros. Like the kids are buzzing around Scotland playing Germany tonight in the football. But actually, for young paddlers, it's aspiring for them to be able to go to the world stage and be able to do that. So we've set up a crowdfunding page for the athletes to try to help them to get to Denmark. The Scottish Surfing Federation will help with small things like entry fees and stuff like that. But actually, getting 5 boards to Denmark, getting the boats booked if they fly over, whatever way we go around doing it. We just need a bit of money in the bank, basically. Spoke to Tennant's yesterday, Tennant's Brewery, because we're trying to think about all the Scottish things.
Awesome. I think you should speak to Quaker Oats as well, if they're Scottish brand.
Yeah. So yeah, just anything at all. I'll send you the link for the crowdfunding. You could share. That'd be great. It'd be great. I was thinking about this the other day, because if everyone that paddleboarded in the race scene sent in a tenner, right, that would just about do it. That would just about give us the sort of 10 grand-ish that we need to get going. So,
Yeah.
10 pints isn't it in the pub these days. So, yeah, it's not a lot of money really. If everyone just gave a little, it would go a long way. So, yeah, just really keen to just support them as best as we can. And just grow the Scottish surf scene. I run a kids club on a Monday night, and I showed them the videos of the champion, and they were like this, watching it. And I said,
Yeah.
if paddleboarding, and I say if, it will become an Olympic sport through the Surfing Federation. And when it does, like the Olympic stage is waiting. And these kids right now that are 8, 9, 10 years old, that's that if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, and you want to be at the Olympics and you want to do it on a paddleboard, if that happens in the next 8 years, then there you go. There's your stage. Now it's the kids right now that are paddling. So I guess having the Scottish guys going is amazing, and we want to have that world stage for our kids to look to the future and have more juniors involved in the racing. That's the ultimate goal, is to have young people racing and enjoying it.
Yeah. No, that's a worldwide, well, not so much a worldwide problem actually. Italy and Spain have got a huge amount of youngsters, but I think for us in the UK it's an ongoing situation. Cool. So we'll drop the link for the fundraising underneath the video. This will be put up on YouTube, and then we'll share it obviously on the social media channels. Thank you so much, Ali, for explaining a lot about how it worked, how it went, bigging up those athletes who are now probably very, very excited, but equally will be very nervous about that next step in Denmark. But it'll be a cracking event. They do put on cracking events over there. So I'd like to thank you. And let's just give your wonderful book a little shout out, shall we? Look, if anybody doesn't know about this book, get this book. It's beautiful, written by Ali. So thank you, Ali. It's been brilliant chatting to you, and we will look forward to hearing more about the guys and their progress towards September. And good luck with the fundraising. We'll help in any way that we can. And we shall see you on the water soon.
Yes. Yeah.
Hopefully in Scotland on an adventure, I hope.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, brilliant.
I will. I will. Thank you so much, Ali, and good luck with the Scottish Surf Federation.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.